I'm with Captain Bryan Pill from Mission Aviation Fellowship, and we're right here in a two-seater aeroplane. Now, we're talking about Mission Aviation Fellowship. When was the organisation started and why was it started?
MAF started just after the Second World War. For a number of reasons, aircraft have been used for as everyone knows, for bombing and have been involved in fighting. And there are a number of pilots and engineers who are thinking, actually, we could use these amazing tools for maybe something that has more peaceful purposes. And it kind of all came together. And so there were some pilots, engineers in Britain and also the US at a similar time. And that's, in a way, where the vision had come for MAF to start.
Is this an active plane that we're sitting in now?
Yeah, this is actually, I learned to fly on one of these. This is a little two-seater Cessna 150, and this is great, one of the world's most successful trainers. But at Mission Aviation Fellowship, we've got about 135 aircraft in 26 countries, and our smallest plane is a four-seater. It's a diesel-powered Cessna, but kind of looks a bit like this, but a bit more room. And then we go up to our largest aircraft. We've got three in Papua New Guinea. They're called de Havilland Canada Twin Otters, and they're 19-seater twin engines. They're small airliners, and so we've got a variety of aircraft in between, because they're operating in about 26 countries.
And where do you work?
Where do we work? Good question. Kind of all over the world, really. Some of the places, they're not really the holiday destinations. You think of South Sudan and Chad, Mongolia, Bangladesh, East Africa, Congo, places like this, and obviously in places South America. And our aim is to bring, I love MAF has got this brilliant tagline to bring help, hope and healing to some of the world's remotest communities. So we work with the Christian Church and Christian missions and aid organisations, many you would know, like World Vision, Save the Children Fund, Oxfam, things like this. And then we do medical evacuations, and we also then have a disaster relief team. So in a way, we got caught up with the Nepal situation, even though we don't have a program there. But that's the sort of work MAF is involved in.
So if there was a disaster at the moment, someone would call you in and say, can you come into this area and help out?
That's right. We've got somebody full-time who would kind of assess whether it's something we could be involved in. Obviously, in the case of Nepal, we were able to help, and Haiti is another case. Obviously, the tsunami some years ago now, we were involved in that. But we're also kind of caught up with events that are just local events, and so we have a program in South Sudan, and obviously all your listeners will know that rather sadly that's not going so well for the country. So we have a program there. And we're involved very much working with the church and aid organisations there.
Is it dangerous, some of the work that you're doing?
Is it dangerous? Well, we always jokingly say, but it's true, but the most dangerous part is driving to the airport usually. I guess there is risk involved, but we take risks seriously. Our pilots are really well trained. Our engineers are excellent. In fact, it's a world shortage of engineers. In fact, any listener out there is an engineer, or if they're youngsters, boy or girl, thinking of a great career, why not think about being an engineer? There's a real need for it. But so we have well-trained engineers, we have good aircraft, and we take risks seriously. But there is an element of risk. But if I'm honest, the biggest risk is driving. Again, on the roads, that's, I would say, many more people get injured in road accidents than ever do in aviation incidents and accidents.
Is working with the local church very important?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, all of our work is to do with partnerships. So be it local church, mission, or aid organisations, partnership is the key. And supporting local churches is very important. I mean, all of us who are working overseas are professional pilots or engineers or IT or accountants or managers. And we all have our own kind of heart, really. So we, to be involved in local church or some area of ministry, just as you would in Britain, then many of all our staff will have their own kind of area of interest that outside of their day-to-day job, really.
So it's Mission Aviation Fellowship, but not everybody's a pilot who works for you.
Absolutely. I think, I must admit, it's great being a pilot, because everyone thinks, oh, you must be a pilot. But actually, we couldn't be without the engineers. We need accountants, managers. I've just been looking on the list. I think there is at least a need for 4 country directors. and various other jobs that come up. So if anyone's kind of thinking, oh, this could be something new, I've never thought of Mission, because I think MAF is all pilots, then by all means contact us and have a look, see what's on the website.
Are some areas that you're going to very inaccessible?
Yeah, I think the reason why we have aircraft, there's a number of reasons really. Sometimes there's just no infrastructure at all. There are no roads. When the rains come, even in desert areas, suddenly there are floods. You can't get from A to B. Quite often roads, bridges are all wiped out. So just the infrastructure is a problem. Sometimes the time involved. There was a really good film I saw that somebody did on MAF. It lasts something like 12 minutes, and it was about a journey that took 5 days. Anyway, so they said the film took 12 minutes. The journey was 5 days, and then they arrived at their destination. They jumped back on the plane, and it took 12 minutes to get back. And that kind of gives an idea sometimes that just the distances by road, water, whatever takes so long. So the aircraft really comes into its own. Sometimes it's cheaper, just the fact that an aircraft goes straight. I did a lot of float plane flying, and if you travel on water, boats are very expensive, and it can just be cheaper. The security is a real issue now in many of the places we operate, and if you can hop over the security insecure area using an aircraft, and so it really makes a difference. And it can just be time, just purely time. If you're on a project and you're there for a week, if you're spending 2 days to get there, it's not so good. And in places like Bangladesh, we have a float plane, and quite often we have visiting medics and surgeons. Well, if they only can give a week of their time, and they have to then again lose an extra day because of travel, then that's an awful lot of people they can't operate on. And if you've had a rough ride, you don't really want a slightly, shaky hand surgeon carrying out eye surgery. So aircraft can come into its own.
So what sort of things do you carry, and what sort of people do you carry on the plane?
I think really everything from the boots to kitchen sinks to vaccines to goats. Sometimes I've flown these really nice goats, and we sort of tie their legs together, have a little chat with them, put them in the pod underneath the aircraft, shut the door, and then we fly off, and we get there and give them a nice hello and undo their legs, and they're as happy as Larry. So we kind of everything really. We taken children to school, it's kind of if they're going to boarding school, we pick them up and deliver them at the end of term. One of the funny ones, we often pick up grandparents visiting they never visit their children, they only ever visit their grandchildren. It's quite interesting that. And so some of it's people doing meetings, doctors, dentists, medical teams. We quite often fly surgical teams, which is great. So we fly a couple of in the plane I often fly as a Cessna Caravan, quite a big single-engine plane, and we'll be able to take 2 operating theatres and all the paraphernalia that goes with it, and they'll stay there for a couple of weeks, and then we'll pick them up. So that's kind of it's very rewarding. I tell you, it's a lot of fun. It's a great job, mainly because of the amazing people you end up meeting.
How long have you been working for the organisation, and what sort of stories have you got? You must have some interesting stories.
Actually, I guess I've been working for them about 24 years, and I think the stories I love are actually working with the people. You just end up in some really obscure places with some amazing people doing some remarkable things, and it's often about we work with all sorts of people. Many of them are Christians, many aren't. But it's a great opportunity, I think, as a Christian, to kind of put faith in action. And one of the things I love is we always pray before we take off. We don't pray particularly for safety, but we pray a blessing. And I love blessing people. So I've blessed prime ministers to cabinet ministers to whoever, to people who are dying. And I think that's one of the great gifts we can give is to give a blessing. And I think as Christians, to be known as people of blessing, that's a great thing. So I think that's one of the thing I love. But we do have some good stories.
Now you're going around in a big lorry at the moment in the UK. What are you doing in the UK?
Well, one of our roles really is to raise awareness of MAF, and I'm involved in looking for the next generation of staff. And we have this 40-foot lorry that we bring along, and we've brought it, in this case, to Faith Camp in Peterborough. And people are welcome. There's a cinema inside it, and they can just kind of get a feel of the kind of work that we're involved in, the opportunity to talk to people, myself and staff. If they want a visitor to come and speak at their WI, the Rotary Club, their church, their Aero Club, then MAF can do it. And we've also towed along this little two-seater that we're sitting in.
Yeah.
And as it's raining, it's really nice to be sitting in here.
Yeah, it's very nice indeed. You also have books for sale in the lorry. Are those books about the work and the ministry that you do?
Absolutely. There's a book called Jungle Pilot, which was it's quite a bit of an old style, but actually it was a book that even now speaks to people, and it involves the story of Nate Saint, who some of the listeners will know about. And Nate Saint was a pilot who died along with 4 other missionaries in 1956 in Ecuador. But the story was one of missionary endeavour, the fact that, had a real love for this people group who were quite unloved, and there was a kind of an ultimate cost. But the story inspired, and I remember as a new Christian, as a young man, reading that, thinking, that is what I want to do. And although it's 15 years later, I always remember that. And eventually I got my private license and my commercial pilot's license, and ended up joining MAF. Yeah. And I think all, in a way, as a result of reading that book, that kind of set the inspiration, really. So yeah, that's a good read. Yeah, well worth it. And there's a film called I think it's The End of the Spear, and that's a bit about the story. Yeah.
Why do you do what you do?
Why do it? A number of reasons. One, there is that sense of calling on my wife and I. We just felt that is what we should do. And as I say, I'd read the book thinking, yes, that is what I want to do. And it's a lovely combination, really, of a kind of a professional job with a kind of, as a Christian, just doing the stuff, really. And it's the adventure, really. I think it's the faith adventure. Yeah. And I think we've been given a really privileged job to be involved in it. I mean, some people wouldn't say being a pilot was a privilege, but I must admit it's been a great one, and our children have had a real adventure. Yeah. Being brought up overseas as well. Yeah. And I think I've had the best job in the world.
Yeah, it sounds like it, very much so. And what's your prayer for MAF?
That it would never lose sight of, bring help, hope and healing to the world's remotest populations. And it would just be really just a inspirer for others to just go higher and further in their own missions. And so I love the fact that we're really there supporting people, just at the most simplest level. I said about the blessing for takeoff, but actually it's just about enabling people to do their job. I mean, quite often I've ended up going to odd places and sometimes just delaying my takeoff for 10 minutes and having a chat with somebody who hasn't really spoken with somebody from, I was going to say somebody from Guernsey, but a Brit. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Just to chat with somebody for 10 minutes can make all the difference to somebody. So it's kind of, so I just pray that they will always hold on to their vision and continue growing, because there's a real need in this world for the kind of work that we're involved in.
And what's your website for people who'd like to know more?
Right. If anyone wants to know more, then it's www.maf-uk.org, and they can find out about job vacancies, to get a speaker, and just learn more about MAF and the exciting work they do. And there's also a youth division, so any younger people, they can check out and get a regular monthly youth magazine under MAF Youth.
Well, thank you very much for sharing.
Oh, it's great. No, it's lovely. I'm glad you could come and get out the rain and join me in this aircraft.